In the Yalkut Yosef, in Siman Shin Aleph in the Shulchan Aruch, right? It talks about, let me get the Chafetz Chaim, 1 second. Okay, so Shin Aleph, so first it says, Ein lo rutz b'Shabbat. You're not supposed to run on Shabbat, only if it's a Dvar Mitzvah,
Oh,
to go to shul and similar to that.
oh,
Now, the Chafetz Chaim says, what's the background for that? Because you're walking on Shabbat should not be like the walking during the weekdays. Just like a person, in the weekdays, people are always on a rush. They're rushing to
right,
business. They're rushing to work. That's a weekday type of thing. You're running. You're running. Everybody's running. And like we say, "Anarutzim v'heimrutzim." We run, they run. Everybody, the world is running. So therefore, the walk. Like I said yesterday.
they run means the goyim.
Say it again.
I think they run means the goyim. No,
Right, but it says they run and we run. Correct. They run and we run. We run to correct. But it's true. You're right. And we run. We're running to mitzvot. But the point here, the running here was talking about. You're right. Here we're talking about the general world. Jews and not Jews are running during the weekdays. They're running to work. That's what it's
right.
referring to. And now he says that is. But then he does say interesting. The young boys that enjoy the running is permitted. So now we have that halacha needs clarification because everybody's going to say I enjoy running,
Right.
but
So it says young boys.
now, so it
What's a
says
young boy?
bachurim, young boys sound like single guys before they're married, teenagers. That now, but here it doesn't talk about working up a sweat. So here we have to know about. See, there's something called running for mitzvah. Young boys that enjoy running, but now there is an issue of working up a sweat. Remember we mentioned that yesterday about working up a sweat on Shabbat. So with that background, we have let's see the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says, um, he says he quotes the Tosefta Shabbat. Ein rotzim b'Shabbat. You can't run on Shabbat to work up a sweat. People run. They want in order to work up a sweat. That you can't do. Now, what's the problem? But he says technically, but the steps if you want to walk, money out and walking, that's not an issue. Walking, even if you walk a tremendous amount, even though again we said Shabbat is not. I mentioned that Shabbat is not supposed to be. I want to spend the whole Shabbat walking, but nevertheless, technically, the guy wants to go for a long walk. That's not a problem. And he says that what's the issue? The issue is, Wani Adam, that there's an issue of healing by running and working up a sweat. There could be an issue of the sweat is a healer, and that might be an issue of refuah, of health on Shabbat. And then the second thing he says, interesting, is
That's a
that
bad thing?
right. I mean, on Shabbat we don't do openly things of health of healing. We don't take a medication on Shabbat unless unless it's necessary. Unless the person has a if it's bedridden, if you won't take the medication, or he has an infection. But there is an issue that the rabbis were concerned of taking a medication that's not so vitally necessary on Shabbat because they were concerned you might come to grind herbs. Because how did they make medicine in the old days? What was the way of making medicine? They grind different herbs, and that's how they made medicine back in the time of the Gemara, the
You
Talmud.
afraid you're gonna grind?
Afraid you're going to grind. Therefore, the rabbi said, listen, if a guy is bedridden, if he's not feeling well that he has to lay down, he could take a medication on Shabbat. He could take this. Not that his life's in danger, but we're talking about that he has to he has to lay down. If he's weak enough that it affects his whole body, he could go ahead and
Take the medicine.
take a medication. Or if he has an infection, that's these are some of the things that then that's an allowance to take medication. If you look at this, another siman in Shulchan Aruch. I think it's siman Shin Chav Chet. Let's take a look over there. It says it's Dinei Chola b'Shabbat. Someone who's sick on Shabbat. That's the laws, okay? So it says someone who has a michush ba'alma, someone has some sort of discomfort, not feeling perfect, but he's able to go like a healthy man. You're walking, you're going. You're not allowed to do refuah for such a person on Shabbat. You can't take medication. The guy who's has a little bit, something's bothering him a little bit, but he's fine. He's able to go.
So theoretically, you're saying if I have a headache on Shabbat, I can't take Advil?
So let's clarify that. So it has to Chafetz Chaim write. I'll tell you what the Chafetz Chaim writes, and we're going to see what everybody Yosef writes. He says if he's in a lot of pain and his whole body is sick as a result of that,
Oh.
or he has to go lay down, even though there's no danger, you could do refuah that doesn't involve malacha, meaning taking a medication. Taking a medication, if a person has to go lay down, he feels that level that he has to lay down, or his whole body is sick, or even if he doesn't have to lay down, but it's affecting his whole body. His whole body is just sick. The whole body feels weak, right? I would think that's what it means. But what about if it's just his head is bothering him? So let's see in the Yalkut Yosef what he has to say about that. Let's take a look. Let's see if they have it in this volume. I got to get the next volume. I'll get the next volume, Mark. 1 second.
Let's get back to the running. We're there.
What did you say? Okay. Take a look at this volume over here. How the Saka edition. Let's see how they write it out. Okay. Um, he says, people who have aches, this is in the preface, people who have aches and pains, but are still capable of going about their businesses at home and outside. This category is forbidden to desecrate the Shabbat in any way to treat these people. Again, they have aches and pains, but they're still capable of going about their business at home and outside. You can't desecrate the Shabbat in any way to treat these people. Furthermore, our sages prohibit these people from engaging in any form of medical treatment on Shabbat. In ancient times, when someone wished to use medicine, he usually had to crush herbs for their extract. Our sages were afraid that someone might do this on Shabbat and become guilty of performing the malach of tochein, of grinding, crushing. Therefore, they have forbade all medicines and all forms of medical treatment for this category of people. Okay, so we have a category of people called some aches and pains, but they're able to go about their business at home and outside. Now, if you have a headache that really is going to affect you, that you can't go out in that level,
It sounds. I don't know about that. That to me sounds like you can, with a headache, go outside.
right. So that's so far it sounds like a headache. It doesn't seem like it's enough allowance.
Yeah.
See, the next category is people who are moderately ill or in such pain that they are bedridden. Someone who is able to go out at the moment, but is in danger of becoming a bedridden if he's not properly treated, is also included in this category. Okay, so if someone is not feeling well and he's afraid, if he doesn't take a medication, some medication, he's going to become it. He's going to have to be lay in bed. The Christian mentioned above does not apply to these people. They may take any medicine against any treatment of Shabbat as long as it doesn't involve a malacha. Okay, so that's now you have to see where does this category of the guy who has the headache, he has the headache, he's able to go out properly, he's able to, it's not affecting his whole body, he doesn't feel, and he's not afraid that he's going to be bedridden.
He has to tough it out.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like from this, we have to know, what does it mean? His whole body is sick as a result of, what category, what would that be? I don't know that a headache is your whole body is sick. Yeah.
No.
So that is, you can look in, I'm just sharing that where you can go further, look more into that, Mark. But I just wanted to share that because you brought that up. But what we brought up yesterday regarding now here comes the Yalkut Yosef. So we just said from the Aruch HaShulchan that one of the issues of running on Shabbat, good morning, Levi, to work up a sweat, because one of the issues is because when you are running to work up the sweat, that is not easy type of activity. You are pushing yourself. You are paining yourself.
Exerting.
And that paining yourself is an issue on Shabbat. Because Shabbat is a day of not paining yourself. So that is what some of the issues are. Good morning, Mark, of running on Shabbat to sweat. Now I'm going to read you here. We've got the Saka edition, Mark. We're not playing around over here. This is the Yalkut. You see, Mark, take a look at this. This is, we're not playing around. So what does he say?
He thinks we could run together.
It is forbidden on Shabbat. You ready? It is forbidden on Shabbat to exercise, whether with or without equipment, if one works up a sweat as a result.
That's where the Ibragimov thing is.
It seems so far it's black and white.
Wow.
We're gonna read a little more. We got to go a little further.
You gotta find him a loophole, otherwise I'm gonna break some news to him.
And okay, so then he writes this point. Now we have to know how the rabbi is going to explain the next few words. We're going to read it again. It is forbidden on Shabbat to exercise whether with or without equipment if one works up a sweat as a result, and that is one's intention. So that word, that's one's intention. That needs clarification. Those three words. It is proper to refrain from repeatedly. Okay, they talk about opening and shutting one's fists to a point where that one sweats, since it is obvious that it's an exercise. Okay, technically, as long as one does not have intent to work up a sweat, it is permitted. Now, how do we translate that? That means what? I want to do is I don't want to work up a sweat. So that's not clear in the language. You have to see the Hebrew edition. However, someone who refrains even from, let's see the top of here, someone who refrains even from exercising without working up a sweat on Shabbat will receive a special blessing from heaven. So meaning he's saying, okay, if you
even if it's mutar and you don't do it, you guys
blessing, meaning even if you're not even if it's not you're not gonna go do a sweat, you have you refrain from exercise even without working up a sweat. I'm going to do a little bit of exercise, a little bit, my minimal amount of exercise. Okay. A minimal amount of exercise. Now, then he says, and then he says, then he concludes, Hashem gave Shabbat and Yom Tov to the Jewish people so that they will devote them for Torah study. That's like a little bit what I was saying yesterday about this. Today, it's a holy day. You know what I'm saying? What are you doing on what type of activities are you doing on this holy day? Instead of saying that the Shabbat is a holy day, says God gave the Shabbat to study. That's what it means, right? It's a day given for. It's not a day that's given to do jog on Friday afternoon. We'll go jogging Moshe Shabbat. We're gonna go jogging Friday afternoon. But on Shabbat, we're not gonna go jogging. I mean, that's what it seems. Again, I'm not starting up with your rabbi, Mark. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I don't want to put him on the spot in front of a. You don't want to put him on the spot. You know what I mean? I mean, if you don't put him in front of us. You know what I'm saying?
There's a professional runner in Israel. She's totally pro, and she doesn't run on Shabbat.
She does not.
Motzei Shabbat. She runs every single day, like 7 days a week, but Motzei.
You hear that, Mark? She says it's a religious woman. She's a
Okay.
religious woman, very famous. She's
Famous among Jews, yeah.
famous among Jews for her abilities of running.
So she said, she runs with the skirt, but she says, I run 7 days a week, only Motzei Shabbat. So,
Saturday night after Shabbat. I told you, gotta go for a run after. And by the way, they're turning the clock, Mark, for you soon. This Friday will be a long day. We gotta.
it's this Friday.
Not this Moshe Shabbat. It's Saturday night. They're turning the clock. So therefore, next Friday, you'll have an extra hour to go. You do your jogging before Shabbat.
No job.
Yeah, walking is not an issue. Okay, but again, in the Hebrew, see this language in the Hebrew upstairs. He says like this, Mark. You're now to do things on Shabbat that will sweat up, whether with utensils, not equipment, as if you're going to reach the sweating and you intend to sweat. So now maybe the rabbi is going to say he doesn't intend to sweat. I don't know. I don't know if the rabbi is going to say that, if that's going to be his explanation. He's not intending to sweat. I don't know if that would be the loop, the technical.
Feel myself like or is it I intend to work hard, like I intend to
Burn calories.
yeah, and sweating
Get in better shape.
Right.
intend to do something that will cause sweating or intend to sweat.
Right. Right. So if it sounds like to me, according to the way the Aruch HaShulchan says, if I'm intending, I want to sweat, meaning I want to run, because I want to reach the level of sweating. Why do I want to reach the level of sweating? Because now I know I did a good workout. Right? Why do people want to sweat when they run? I think it's strengthen. I know it's a sign that I reached levels of. So if you're intending to sweat, that's clear. He's saying if you're intending to sweat, now why are you intending to sweat?
It's my strength, my stamina.
Right.
And not sweat.
Okay.
Well, yeah, stamina maybe, but if you're looking to just strength train, a lot of people are not intending to sweat. They do it by accident because it's like they really just want to get
You need weight.
yeah, if you're doing like weights or something, or you're doing like stretching
on
thing.
wet on thing, it says, with or without. It's with or without.
It's with or without equipment. So the issue
You know, the equipment doesn't save you, but if you can take away the equipment, let's say you're just doing like push-ups or something.
Why you do that? Right. So are you planning? Are you doing the push-ups with the intent? I want to reach a sweat.
But
That's
if
good.
your goal is strength training to cardio, I would think maybe it's not your,
It's not your intent.
it could be incidental. You may
Might be
end up-
right. So it could be that if it's incidental, maybe that's not that's where the issue. That's maybe where perhaps if I'm not intending to sweat. But you see, but then he said, "Wait, if I'm not intending to sweat, so maybe it might not be technically wrong, even if you're gonna sweat. But
yeah.
but on the other problem is that according to the way the Aruch HaShulchan presents it, if I'm working hard, you know what I'm saying? If the fact that I'm working hard, I'm exerting myself and I'm pushing myself and I'm
exerting yourself a problem regardless of sweating, it's still a problem to exert yourself.
Maybe they didn't go that far, meaning if I'm gonna walk a long walk, they didn't say there's a problem to walk a long walk.
Because I've walked
No problem.
and I walked
You're right, but that far they didn't.
4 hours.
Right. So then they didn't forbade that. Like I said, Shabbat was not given to take. I'm not criticizing you. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying, but at Shabbat, people have to realize that Shabbat. There's the spirit of again. He's talking. Avadia talks about the spirit, the spirit of Shabbat. The spirit of Shabbat is not that we're supposed to be spending the whole Shabbat walking for spending all these hours walking. But that's what I think. That's my personal opinion. But even though the Tosefta says,
Me on Shabbat,
but
when I go out, when I go, it's also like cleansing for my mind and my.
because it's a great enjoyment. You're thinking about you're using it in a very positive way, because technically Tosefta does right. Technically, a person could walk his normal way even the whole day. So technically, the law did not forbid a guy from walking the whole day, as long as you don't go outside the Tchum Shabbat. You don't walk outside the city more than 2,000 amot. There's the technical halacha, and then there's the ideal, right? It just says like Rav Yosef says.
It's what's preferred or
What's
could be mutar.
right? Because he does say clearly, if someone refrains from exercising even without working up a sweat.
Of course. No, you used to run on. I didn't know it wasn't allowed to run on Shabbat.
Now you know.
Now I know.
From that girl.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right. So we have the only thing is we have to know exactly, because when it says the young people, the young boys who run and they enjoy it, they can run. That's what it says.
Okay.
So the young, but now we need clarification. What does that mean?
Young boy.
And what is young man? And what does it mean? And I then also, what about if you're intending to work up a sweat? What will be over there?
Really, intending to sweat black and white, that's a problem.
Seems to be a problem, right? That seems to be a problem.
If you sweat and it wasn't your intention.
Right. Then
Now it's starting to get to the gray area.
exactly. That's what it seems like.
But brother, is that health, or is this a separate concept? The sweating has to do with exertion.
So far, it has to do with exertion, but if your intention is to sweat, so then it might be an issue of a health issue. That you're doing an act. This was a common way that people would do things of healing, was sweating, working up a sweat. So then you're getting into that. Right. You're getting into that.
So you couldn't go to the sauna. We've already talked. I don't even want to go back.
Right. We got to go back to right. About going to the bathhouse. Right. Right. So
But not for this.
right. So we have to go back to right. We have to. You're saying.
But they never with the whole bathhouse episode. They never. Yeah, it was good to go until the stoking the coals issue came out.
Right. So you're asking about this. Going for a schwitz, right? Going for a steaming. It should be a problem.
Real thing.
Right. You want to get out. So that's a healing thing, right? So why don't
we talk about this?
Yeah, so we have to go back to right. So we have so maybe so far, maybe there's two issues here. Meaning, maybe the schwitz, you're not working hard when you go into the schwitz. When you're going taking that schwitz, but you're doing that act. So now we have so now the question is it that we need it's only because you have two issues here, and there was not this wasn't the exertion issue, it was just so I gotta go back to the drawing. I gotta go back to that homework. I got some homework to address your question. But you say if you're talking about what? Right. But going back, we have to go back to our Gemara about the swimming. Remember about swimming on Shabbat. So I want to, we spoke about, oceans, rivers, and then the question came, the Gemara had a question about something that has a rim around it, a bank. So I want to read to you. It's interesting. This halacha of exercise is right next to halacha of swimming. So I want to share with them. I want to give the swimming thing. But you see, there are Jews that swim on Shabbat in a pool, right? And you know there are people that say don't do it, right?
Yeah.
So what's going on, right? Going on. So we spoke
I
about
don't
it.
think my rabbi does that.
Right. So the question is, what's going on with that? Right. Right. So no. So what we said again, nobody's going into lakes. No one going into open areas, a lake, an ocean, or ship. No one's swimming. We said what we came out, what we concluded from our learning that Gemara, we got to go back to always review is you can't swim in an ocean, you can't swim in a lake, and without a bank, without a rim. We said that's the Gemara had a question. What about if something has a rim or not has a rim? Would make it fair something. If it has a rim, would that make it permitted? Right? Here comes on Shabbat. It is this again. This is Simon 301 A9. Look, on Shabbat, it's forbidden to sail or swim in a lake or river. That's clear. Our sages forbade this, but that would definitely be ocean as well. For fear one might construct a device to help the swimmer stay afloat. You might, construct. You might build, right? Construct a device.
Built. It's already built. I'm not worried.
Yeah, but today it's built, but to other guys, another time might not be built. So we're not going to allow you to go swimming in an ocean on Shabbat, in a lake on Shabbat, thus performing several acts. Now, by making this float, you're going to be violating Shabbat, many malachot. It is prohibited to swim in a pond located in public property for additional reason. So someone might splash water. We spoke about that also. The water might go flying if you have a pool in the middle of in public area, and now what a public pool, they're outdoors, right? And if it's not most of our public pools today most probably like within a park, within a secluded, not a pub, not in the street. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they have a pool in a street. Imagine right in the gutter. We don't have that type of issue, I don't think. If the pond is in a private yard, it's still prohibited to swim in. Since one swims, the water will splash over the banks of the pond and it will appear like a river. It is permitted. Okay, now here it comes. Get ready. It is permissible, however, to swim in a swimming pool that has a rim around it. We're going to see it's not going to end like that. So simple. You know what I mean? I want to be careful. So someone walks in the middle. Okay. Right? Okay. It is permissible, however, but there are holy people that do it. If obviously holy people do it, and there are people that are God that not everybody. When I say holy people, I don't mean I can't say I don't know if that's the right word. I mean there are religious people that do it. That's the word. That's the right word. Correct? Same thing. But you see what I'm saying? When I say holy, but I'm saying, but holy might mean the rabbis. You know what I'm saying? Now, it is permissible, however, to swim in a swimming pool that has a rim around it that prevents the water from splashing over its edges, right? If it's permissible. However, again, we're going to see if anybody walks in while we're talking. We're going to see how don't do it. At the end, don't go swimming on Shabbat. But technically, it is permissible to swim in a swimming pool that has a rim around it that prevents the water from splashing over its edges, right? Because that issue of water going from private to public will be addressed by the fact you have the rim. So you don't have that problem. But there's going to be other issues. This is like swimming in a large bowl filled with water and not in a sea or river. Swimming is not forbidden as exercising, even if one swims vigorously and works up a sweat. So now here we see we just spoke about exercising. Now you're allowed to sweat. Why? He says this is because any onlooker can reasonably assume that he's swimming merely to enjoy himself and not as exercise.
Vigorously is exercise.
But yeah, let's read it again. Swimming is not forbidden as exercise, even if one swims vigorously and works up a sweat. It's permitted
as exercise.
But no, he says, because it looks like, why are you doing this? You're not doing this, meaning it could be that exercise was more looked at as something that's done for health purposes. Maybe he's going to that issue. Why are you exercising? Is it for health purposes? Yeah, exercising. But he's saying, this is because any onlooker could reasonably assume that he's swimming merely to enjoy himself and not as an exercise.
So would that apply to the running? Because when I was running, for me, it's like a walk, you know?
Yeah,
Wait. What it's like walk. Let's use the same words and change into things. So an onlooker sees someone run. An onlooker sees someone swimming.
right,
They're not gonna.
They both could sweat.
right,
They both could not sweat.
right.
So I'm gonna look at the swimmer and say, he's just swimming to enjoy himself. I'm gonna look at the runner and say, he's just looking to enjoy himself. His intention, or now the intention is, I don't know, first of all, the swimmer sweat. Cold.
I think so.
Vigorously, if you do vigorously.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I talk about vigorously. Generally, maybe you don't, now, then he says, now he goes, nonetheless, after we just said that, here's the nonetheless. It is proper. It is proper and fitting. You ready, Mark? Adam, it is proper and you ready? It is Asaf. I don't know if I said hello to you. Nonetheless, it is proper and fitting to refrain from swimming in any sort of pool on Shabbat, even if one does not actually swim, but only wishes to bathe in the water. It should be avoided. I mean, I guess I'm not going to swim. I'm just going to go into the water. I'm going to bathe in the water, cool off. It should be avoided, especially if one is wearing a bathing suit. Now, I presume, well, how else are you swimming? Right. No, you go, right. I don't know. Right. Exactly. I mean, people go for a dip. I mean, we have to know what, no, unless he's talking about, we have to see about the materials, maybe, because I presume there's issues with squeezing out the water.
That's what I'm saying. When you take it off, then you're gonna do this.
Or maybe we have to see more about, but the theory, we have to see, we have to go a little more into it. But that's, again, now, we saw also the Chafetz Chaim spoke about, there's issues. You might come to squeeze things, your hair, the hair issues. He didn't even talk about the hair issue over here. Now he seems like he's concerned about the, now there's a concern of maybe maybe his is a concern about the bathing suit or something. Yeah. So just it's a little bit. So now what we do see from here is that all the people that do go swimming on Shabbat, there is room when they're swimming in a pool. They have room to.
So ultimately, the room, which as you the word, the remaining seat is a bank around the pool.
Exactly. The bank around the pool. No one's going. No one has. There's no allowance at all to go swimming in an ocean in a lake. That's clear.
That's easy.
That's easy. But now you have a pool, which there are some Jews that do that on Shabbat, but they have to be aware of the issues of the hair and the bathing suit, the bathing. And here he's you know, it's better. The language is
But pull out the rigorously swim and sweat.
right. That's what he said.
Fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering about.
Right, because that's looked at as an
Like
exercise.
how it looked. Okay.
Right.
Surely exercise as much as running. It's
Yeah, that's weird. It's like, well, if someone's jogging on the boardwalk in Tel Aviv, that looks like it's vigorous necessarily.
No, but the question, but it's an exercise. Again, if
Stay away from the board.
it's exercise. It's an exercise. But you see,
Go blindfold.
by the way, you should say,
So Obadi, he's kind of like opining on how different exercises look to people. You know,
Right.
It feels very contextual. Like,
right,
What is it?
you know, he's talking from an Israeli perspective. Maybe there's no running culture there. You know, especially back in his day. Like now, maybe it's different. It's more casual. Like he's making a judgment about how running and swimming looks. You know.
but
Running might not have been as prevalent, maybe swimming was more.
Yeah, back in those days, it was like only like crazy people probably were running in Israel.
But he's saying the issue of the running with the to work up a sweat again. Generally, we say you can't run on Shabbat because the running the walk on Shabbat should be different than the weekdays, right? That was that's the starting point. And then we go to the idea of doing that's even if you're not sweating, right? If you want, then we go into the idea of exerting yourself to get to a sweat, an act of exercise, right? If it, right, he said the problem is if you're going, you can't do exercise on Shabbat if if one is working up a sweat and that is your intention.
With intention to sweat.
To intention to sweat.
So if I have no intention to sweat, and even if I do sweat,
That's what it sounds like.
I'm okay.
That's what it sounds like. Now, does the person have an intention to sweat when they go run?
Because if I sweat, it'll warm me the day.
Right. So we got into that. Bathing on Shabbat in cold water, technically, we said is allowed. I mean, at least for technically.
You're not running. You're not.
But we're not. But I think we don't do it. You know what I'm saying? We stay away from it. You know what I'm saying?
You could do cold shower.
But we can do cold shower. Right. I mean, he doesn't mention anything. I mean, the Shulchan Aruch, the way the Chafetz Chaim just presents it, like he just says, you can't run on Shabbat, but the Shulchan Aruch said you can run for mitzvah. You want to run for mitzvah, you can run for mitzvah. You want to run to shul, you can run to shul Shabbat. That's not jogging. That's
I'm late for shul.
It's not exercising. Right.
So if I got to run somewhere to be on time, okay, run to shul to be on time. But that's what you're shooting on and you're shooting on. Not jogging down.
But when we still can't, if I want to go run on Shabbat, I want to run across the street on Shabbat. I'm not allowed to run across the street on Shabbat, just to run across the street. I want to run to the corner. Why run to the corner? I want to get there earlier.
That's not what I understood.
There's
the leniency of running if I don't sweat. I don't intend on sweating. You read it.
Right, but I'm saying again, we have to
read that one sentence.
Right. But then the beginning of the siman, right. But the beginning of the siman opens up that you walk. It should be it should be different. It should be different than the weekday. So now, according to that, if I want to run just across the street, I should have a problem running across the street. But that's not because
if I don't have, if I have no intention, I'm allowed to walk.
No, I don't know about that. I understand that we read it, but now but how we have to understand how do we? I mean, we spoke about exercising on Shabbat. The question is exercising on Shabbat. Now we have to talk about exercising and running. Is there a difference between exercising? Because how do we address the first? You can exercise without running, right? Right. So maybe the first halacha, what is you can't run on Shabbat. So what is this? So we have to see, how do we explain the first halacha and the last halacha? Okay, something to think about, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everybody.